This actually looks great.
This just looks...
Look at there's the brick pattern. Oh, this is good.
Kennywood, there's only one. I love that.
Dude, look at Old Mill.
Kennywood's always...
Uh-huh.
Can't put this on YouTube anymore.
Aw.
I mean, you still can, if you so
May or
desire.
may not have been wanting to use it as a video intro, but oh well.
It's hard to believe that another year has already come and gone, and yet here I stand ready to head into the 2023 Kennywood season. There's a lot to look forward to in this upcoming season, but I do have one last piece of unfinished business before I completely leave 2022 in the past. You all know what time it is, so let's look back at Kennywood's 124th season and all the notable events that this past year brought for the park. Before the season had even begun, there was a lot of excitement in the off-season as we already knew about many park enhancements that would be taking place. These ranged from revamped and upgraded areas of the park to attraction repaints and other quality of life improvements, not to mention the return of Kangaroo, the removal of which caused many an uproar around the Pittsburgh area. Season Pass Holder Day finally arrived on April 16th, and although the weather didn't cooperate, it was still a fun-packed day with numerous changes around the park. Besides, who doesn't love a good phantom ride in the rain? I know I'm weird. Right away, construction was already completed on many of the revamped areas, including the front entrance, the tunnel leading into the park, and my personal favorite, the entrance plaza. Old Mill's new front facade coupled with the tunnel murals and a new Kennywood photo op nearby made for a familiar yet refreshing first impression. As we explored the park further, more changes could be found, including construction on Kangaroo, repaint progress on the wooden coasters, and new signage throughout the park. Sadly, not everything that day was positive, as Steel Curtain had to sit out Pass Holder Day. Those of you who have been following Kennywood or watching my videos for a while likely know that Steel Curtain has quite the problematic history, so it being closed on Preview Day was disappointing, but not at all surprising. The closure would extend to the following day, Public Opening Day. Although it being on Easter Sunday likely impacted attendance, this was the first time the public could see all the new changes for themselves, and reception seemed very positive. The following weekend, a sleeping giant would awaken as Steel Curtain returned to the park's operational lineup. With this, the park's lineup felt more complete, and hundreds made their way over to Steelers country that weekend to get back on the coaster. As April turned into May, Jack Rabbit's repaint was completed. With its new striking white paint, entrance archway, and mural in the queue, the coaster finally looked completely ready to celebrate its 100th anniversary. Towards the end of May, many were looking at the nearly completed Kangaroo site for any activity, and we would get that on May 28th. The ride soft opened that day after a total refurbishment by Premier Rides, and it would have its grand opening on the 29th. Although it wasn't exactly the same, this was still like reuniting with an old friend. Kangaroo is a Kennywood staple, and I'm so glad Palace realized that and allowed the park to bring this back. There are some minor changes. There's a seatbelt now in addition to the lap bar, and the cycle seems shorter, but I did ride this during the initial testing period, so that might be the reason. The retro-inspired backdrop alone made the return worth it, and seeing it at night is a must if you're going to visit the park anytime soon. Thankfully, it wasn't hard to see these lights, as Kennywood also began staying open later, usually till 9 or 10 o'clock. I've said it before and I'll say it again, the nighttime is the best time to see Kennywood. Those warm summer nights with neon and LEDs everywhere with the smell of funnel cakes and the sound of Phantom going up the lift in the background, there's just nothing like it. The summer season would continue on into June, which is when the park adopted a cashless system, much like many other regional amusement parks have done recently. This was a polarizing announcement to many, but I understand why so many parks are doing it. It speeds up service time for guests and it simplifies things for the employees. I personally didn't mind this change, and there were kiosks around the park to convert cash to a card, so you weren't entirely out of luck if you didn't bring a debit card. By this point in the season, I and many others were undoubtedly enjoying the late hours the park was staying open, and it was about to get even better. From July 1st through July 4th, to take advantage of the 4th of July holiday, Kennywood stayed open until 11 p.m. For those who love night rides, this was a dream come true, and the park reverted to 10 p.m. closings after the 4th. Sadly, this would not last long. Starting in mid-July, Kennywood began closing at 8 o'clock. This decision upset many, myself included, but I had a suspicion that this closing time was mandated by Palace Entertainment and not Kennywood themselves. This suspicion would appear to be backed up when the park held a pass-holder-only nighttime event in Steelers country, seemingly to gauge interest in later closing times. The event took place on August 21st, and it was the most activity I had seen in Steelers country since Steel Curtain opened in 2019. The Jumbotron was on, Midway games were out, and Steel Curtain was running great. If the higher-ups at Kennywood wanted to see high attendance at this event, they sure got it. A mere 2 days later, the park announced that the Steelers Experience building, which had never opened to the public, would house a new Alice in Wonderland-themed haunt during the upcoming Phantom Fall Fest. This would be the first time that the building would be open to the public, and after years of speculation, I just wanted to see what it looked like in there. The haunt was announced to be an upcharge attraction, but free for pass holders before October 2nd, which prompted a very mixed response. One last treat was in store before the summer season came to a close. On September 1st, night rides returned to cap off the summer. I guess enough people showed up to that Steelers country event. With many a night ride on Phantom and Curtain, summer operations came to an end on September 17th. This was also the final day to ride Racer, as it was announced to be getting its own repaint beginning during Phantom Fall Fest. One attraction I've neglected to mention until now is Raging Rapids, which, despite a sign promising refurbishments and upgrades, did not open at all in 2022. We'll have to wait and see if it returns for 2023 instead. We didn't have long to wait before Phantom Fall Fest began. September 23rd was the pass holder preview night for the Halloween event, and many were excited to get a look at the new Malice in Wonderland haunt. I personally ended up not going through the haunt that day, the line was a little too long, but I still had a great time riding coasters by day and walking through the haunts at night. It was shaping up to be a great Halloween season for Kennywood, but unfortunately, this is where the season took a dark turn. I won't spend too much time on this, but being that this is a recap of the entire season, I have to mention the good and the bad. September 24th was the public opening night for Phantom Fall Fest, and though I was not in attendance, first-hand accounts described the night as chaotic. The park was more than busy, having to open the third-level parking deck to accommodate everyone. Lines were so long that they spilled out of their queues, and even the smallest attractions had at least an hour wait. Amidst the crowds, the worst was yet to come. Towards the end of the night, at around 10:46 p.m., an altercation occurred in front of Music Express that resulted in one of the individuals involved producing a handgun and firing several shots. 3 people were injured as a result, with all being shot in the leg. The chaos that erupted afterwards saw everyone running to get out of the park, and several people sustained injuries from getting trampled by the crowd. The police search for the assailant led to a temporary lockdown of the park, though no arrests were made that night. The whole incident sparked a media controversy, including many asking how the firearm got into the park. Being that all guests visiting Kenny would have to pass through metal detectors, it seemed unlikely, though not entirely impossible, that security simply overlooked it. A subsequent investigation found it more likely that the firearm was passed over the fence which runs alongside Kennywood Boulevard. Whatever the case, Kennywood stayed closed for the following Sunday, with many wondering how the park would respond. Would the season end right then and there? The answer would turn out to be no, and on September 28th, Kennywood announced heightened security measures for the upcoming weekend. These included the removal of all trees along Kennywood Boulevard, as well as additional lighting along the perimeter fence. An increased police presence and enforcement of the chaperone policy were part of these as well, but the biggest change was the park's new bag policy. Now, only bags that fit within the dimensions of 8 inches by 5 inches would be allowed. Although the bag restrictions angered some, this was an understandable response to an incident that never should have happened. With these changes, Kennywood reopened on September 30th. Crowds at Phantom Fall Fest were understandably light at the beginning of October, but they would slowly grow as the month went on. To entice guests to return, the park offered early entry for pass holders, and the free admission period for Malice was extended. I returned on October 16th, as I was invited to attend a behind-the-scenes tour of Malice in Wonderland. This is a tour I was very excited for, since in addition to seeing all the details of the new haunt, this was the first time I and many others stepped foot inside the Steelers Experience building. After seeing the interior, which was almost completely gutted of any Steelers attractions, it's safe to say the building will be repurposed. But to what? We'll have to wait and find out. There's plenty of room in there for many possibilities, but the haunt was the star of the show at the time. With the lights on, we had plenty of time to admire the elaborate sets that were constructed, my favorite being this clever dinner scene which appears normal from one side, only to become a scene of carnage when viewed from the other side. Huge thanks to the Kennywood PR department for inviting me out to this. They always know how to have a good media event. October 30th was the final night for Phantom Fall Fest, and for many of the attractions, this was the final night of the season to ride them. As everyone was getting their last rides in, much attention was on the old volcano plot, which at the time had a lot of activity going on around it. Construction walls alluding to an alien invasion circled the ride's former location, and Cosmic Chaos was in the process of receiving a striking new green and orange paint scheme. Whatever was going in here, it would involve multiple attractions. On November 6th, an alien-themed mural on the building behind this new ride was completed, and this looks fantastic. That's one way to draw attention to your new ride, give it a backdrop that nobody could miss while walking by. The mural even has a few Easter eggs too if you look close enough, and this was around the time that Cosmic Chaos's repaint was completed as well. After a series of teaser videos on social media, Kennywood announced Spinvasion as the new ride for 2023. This will be a Zamperla Griffin, the first of its kind in the United States, though thankfully not a prototype. The prototype opened in Canada at Playland in Vancouver. With its rotating ride cycle and swinging seats, Spinvasion is being marketed by the park as a spiritual successor to their former swing-around ride, which used to sit atop the garden stage. Spinvasion will be part of a new themed area, Area 412, which will include Spinvasion, Cosmic Chaos, and a newly remodeled Chaos gift shop. Right away, I and many others made the comparison to Kings Island's own Area 72, which has a similar theme but features 2 roller coasters. Kennywood's area will include 2 flat rides instead, and who knows if we'll see any additional theming in there. This area of the park was formerly known as Volcano Valley, but that theming had been quickly disappearing ever since the removal of King Kahuna in 2009. Hopefully these additions bring some excitement back to this area of the park. As construction on Spinvasion ramped up, November 19th brought the beginning of Holiday Lights, the park's Christmas event. Much like the previous year, Jackrabbit joined the ride lineup on warmer nights, and it was a wonderful, festive time to share with friends and family. On December 2nd, a repaint of Swingshot was announced, the first time the ride had been repainted since its opening in 2006. A drastically different and much more eye-catching paint scheme was in store for Swingshot, heavily inspired by the ride's logo. With work now going on in many different areas of the park, Holiday Lights ended on January 1st, once again ending the season in the following year. And that brings us to today, waiting patiently for the new season to begin while reminiscing about all the great nights we had last year. Overall, I think the 2022 season was a strong one for the park. It brought all kinds of improvements and upgrades along with the promise of even more for the near future. The year had its highs and lows, obviously, but time keeps on moving forward, and we have to as well. The park has already teased even more additions, including a new look for the pizza warehouse next to Kittyland, so who knows what else they could do before April. Maybe Sky Coaster will finally get removed. It hasn't run in nearly 4 years after all. Now that we've looked back on 2022, let's head into this new season with a clean slate and open minds. People go to amusement parks to have fun and excitement, and I know for sure that this summer will bring plenty of that, and who knows what else. I'd like to thank you all for joining me on this look back at Kennywood's 124th season. Let's make the 125th even better, and I hope to run into some of you there this summer. We're all coaster nerds after all, so let's get a Phantom ride or two. It's more fun with more people. Anyway, that's all for now, so thank you all again for joining me for this video. I'll see you next time for more roller coaster content here on Rampaging Rex Productions. Take care guys, and I'll see you next season.